So, Wren, start with the search a little bit. Obviously, you had a lot of candidates that I'm sure you were interested in, but what was it ultimately about Ross? And did you notice him as when he was assistant, sort of ID him as a guy that eventually would be a major head coach?
Yeah, I did. He and Coach McCaslin have a very special bond and relationship. And, at North Texas, I was able to be around a lot with those guys. As you know, I have a background in basketball, so I like to be around all the sports, but basketball is the one that I probably have the most knowledge of how it's being built and how it fits together. And so I did know how much Grant relied on him, and watched him there. And it's interesting. He had multiple chances to leave there for high major programs that paid him a lot more money. But he was loyal then and stayed, and we had great conversations, great relationship, but I always knew he was a great coach. I love coaches who've done it at hard places and who've won at a really high level, and certainly that's in his background. So yeah, he's always someone I admired and respected. I knew the role he played at North Texas, knew that we didn't have a head coach designation because I lived through that earlier in my career, and I kind of feel like, hey, you can do that when it's time to do it. But always in my mind, had Grant left, that was probably where we would go with it there. And then, of course, I've been able to watch them since then. So, and just the kind of person he is, the way he leads programs, the way I think even Mike Kazaz has snuck up to the NIT to get a leg up on everybody. He's out hustling. So you got a chance to watch a little bit of Ross's interaction with his player and coaches. There's a relationship there that is very deep and very meaningful, and I always respected that as well.
Wren, you talked about a coach that puts down roots. Coach, you're aware that the previous coach did not put down roots. What kind of commitment beyond the contract can you make to being here longer than a year?
They don't call him hard-hitting Hoppy for for nothing.
This move was not an easy move for me. I'll be perfectly honest. We talked a lot as a family. We shed a lot of tears. We had deep, meaningful relationships, in Denton, and that's something that's very important to us. Is obviously I'm a basketball coach. That's what I'm paid to do, to win games, to win championships. We understand that, but people are important to us, and it's not something that we take lightly. Put it like that. Moving a family, there was probably only a handful of situations that we would have even considered. Again, leaving my family there in Texas, that's where I'm from originally, and have so much immediate family, but the opportunity to get Shelly back close to her family as well is something that's very important to us. And Wren mentioned it. Me personally, I had several opportunities to leave when I was an assistant at North Texas for what some people would say were bigger and better opportunities at bigger brands, higher levels, more money, and ultimately that's not necessarily what I'm interested in. I'm interested in people and being in a place that we can call home.
Ross, what areas do you feel comfortable recruiting in? Obviously, you're from Texas. What areas do you feel recruiting?
Yeah, I really feel comfortable recruiting nationally. Obviously, the landscape has changed with the transfer portal. And, even being a junior college coach, and I can weave this into a story if everybody will allow me to bore them. But when you were a junior college coach, there was always an East Coast trip that you went on every year. And you would start in D.C., you'd end up in Baltimore, you'd go to Philly, you'd go to New Jersey, you'd go to New York, and then you'd go back home, and that was about a week and a half swing. And Shelly and I, had just really started, dating seriously. And so Shelly was like, you can stay, with Donna. Donna lives there in Baltimore. So I kind of made that my hub my home base, and so go recruit a little bit, come back, go recruit a little bit, come back, and so, and again, I still have my boyish good looks, but I actually have been doing this for a while. That's what I always remind my team. I've been standing in front of teams for 21 years, and so this was still a time period where there was VHS cassettes, and I came back one night, and Donna had recorded the Dallas Mavericks and San Antonio Spurs, like Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. And I was like, this is going to work. This is going to work. But, that background, junior college background, 6 years, you're recruiting all over. Even if you look at our roster there at North Texas, since we've been there, we've had players from the East Coast. We've had players from New York, players from Philadelphia, players from Florida, players from Africa, players from everywhere. So it's about relationships, and we'll work really hard to improve the relationships that we don't have and meet new ones. And but again, West Virginia, the brand is powerful, and it resonates across the country.
So Wren talks a lot about the lineage of this program and just making sure everyone's aware of it, even if maybe there's been downtimes and some things going on recently. And obviously Wren talked about Dusty May and other coaches that have, gave you the stamp of approval. But just for any detractors out there or anyone that would say that you only were a head coach at the D1 level for 2 years and you haven't coached an NCAA tournament team, these fans don't want 3, 4, 5 years missing the tournament. Why do you feel you're ready for this now beyond what Dusty May would say? And why do you think you're suited to handle the pressure of, it's not your fault they missed the last 2 years, but the fan base wants in right now in year one?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been really fortunate, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it much during my speech, but I've been really fortunate to work for some elite coaches. Larry Eustace was AP coach, national coach of the year. He won the Big 12 twice in a row, regular season at Iowa State. Grant McCaslin, in my opinion, is one of the best coaches in the country. Even dating back to my younger time period, Bill Foy won a national championship in junior college. Sam Walker was the all-time winningest coach at Texas A&M Commerce. And so I've been really, really fortunate to be around coaches that, really mix it all together. And, Coach Eustace was the master in simplicity. His teams were so incredibly tough. They weren't going to turn the ball over, and they were going to get back every single time on defense. And it's like, that's what it was. We didn't spend a lot of time with trying to score on a baseline out of bounds or run this tricky play. His tricky play was, we're going to go rebound every time this ball goes up, and we're going to go grab the ball with two hands, and we're going to put the ball in the basket. And I've been really fortunate to work along and with those guys and be part of NCAA tournament teams as an assistant and be part of teams that won games in the NCAA tournament. And I've had an opportunity to look at it from afar, and I do know what it takes. I'm not confused on that. It's something I'm very confident in, and I do have an inordinate amount of confidence in the people that we'll put in place from a staffing standpoint, that we can get the players that can do what we need to do to put them in position to get back to the NCAA tournament. And unfortunately, in this time period of college athletics, there is some detractors, and there's a lot of negatives that people talk about. But one of the positives is when you do take over a program like we're taking over that maybe hasn't been in the NCAA tournament in a couple years, you do have the opportunity to revamp it and do it quickly.
What led you to play the way you play? What was there things that you said, well, this is the way we have to play?
Well, we talked about it earlier. Again, historically, if you look at the teams that win this time of year, it's because they're rooted in defense, and especially in the Big 12. It's not surprising at all. Like I say, you can look it up. The teams that have had the best defense, when Kansas was winning the Big 12, they were the best defensive team in the league. Houston's won the Big 12 recently. They've been the best defensive team in the league. And I always worked for defensive-minded coaches. Coach Foy, my junior college coach, who I also worked for, he was an Indiana guy. He graduated from Indiana, so he was a Bob Knight, like so many of the people coming from that region that time of the year. So that was his deal. And I wasn't a great player, I was okay. But there was a certain amount of like grit and toughness and competitiveness and fight that I had to show up with in every single day, knowing I wasn't going to like out-athlete anybody. And so I think some of it was born from my playing days and the guys that I worked for, and then just being committed to giving our teams the best chance to win and win consistently. And what we've been able to do over the last, not only has our scoring defense been really good, but we've went back and forth with Houston for having the best road winning percentage in the country the last 8 years. And if you're going to win on the road, you better be tough, you better be physical, you better be able to defend, and then you better have elite guard play. And we've had some of the best guards in the country.
Sorry. Go ahead. We'll do this one.
Coach, can you just talk about what last week was like? How did you balance your commitment to your North Texas players with getting started here? Like, what were you able to do for West Virginia? And then just because the portal had been open, do you feel at all it's put you behind schedule, or do you feel good about where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, you're a coach, and I would think your job is to not ever feel really good where you are. But ironically, and I talked about this a little bit at the NIT, if the job change hadn't have happened, and I was coaching North Texas, there's a good chance that 85 to 90% of that team, like President Gee, was going to be in the portal or out of eligibility. We may have had one or two players back. That's the reality of modern college athletics, and I know it sucks. I know it sucks for fans. I know there's no other way for people that grew up watching Mountaineer basketball, and you were able to kind of watch a freshman and turn them and see them grow in from a boy to a man. And I still think you can do that, but they are going to be fewer and far between. I call them unicorns. But so whether it was us or if you're like Florida or Houston or any of those teams still playing, you were going to spend probably, if you're making it a pie, you were going to spend 30% of your time preparing for your games. The other 70% of your time, you were going to be recruiting the portal, and you were going to be making phone calls, and you were going to be trying to line up visits. And so I know it's probably like, especially for the traditionalists, it's probably like kind of weird, but I wasn't doing anything different than what I would have been able to do if I wasn't here or if I was still there. We were preparing for our games when we had to, got an incredible staff. Those guys are tremendous. And then we were working the phones and, trying to line up things for after the dead period. It goes dead today, so you're not really missing you can't have any visits, and you can't go recruit from now until I believe next Friday. So you're not really missing much in that regard. So to answer your question, it didn't feel that different. You were just you were making recruiting phone calls, and you're talking about West Virginia basketball and how incredible this is and the opportunity, and there's a lot of excitement around it, and we'll hit the ground running here, next week.
Up top, Kevin. Coach, your defense obviously gets a lot of well-deserved credit. Offensively, are there things that you like to do? Are there things that fit well with what you do on defense? That, similar players, similar skills. What are your ideas there?
Yeah, you are right, and our defense does get a lot of attention. It's talked about the most. And one thing that doesn't get talked much, and I kind of have to remind people, we did have, when I talked about like KenPom, which is a way of measuring efficiency, we did have the second best offense in our league out of 14 teams. Our defense gets all the attention, rightfully so, but we were an extremely efficient offense. If you look at the last 2 years, we've had one of the best three-point percentages in the entire country. What wins basketball games? Trying to take care of the ball, sharing the ball, playing the right way, playing for each other, the right guys taking the right shots at the right time. And I think it's a misnomer, a little bit that again, our tempo, it gets pointed out. It's been used against us negatively at times in recruiting. And then I always say, but who's one spot above us in tempo? Houston. And they're winning championships. And, that's the ultimate goal. And we've had players offensively. Every year that we've played, even last year and this year, we've had individual players do things that they've never done and break school records. Atten Wright this year, he was 15 points a game last year on an NCAA tournament team. And then this year he made 25 more threes for us than he did for them last year.
Ross, you talked about assembling a staff. Do you have a timeline on that right now? And what characteristics are you looking for guys you're going to bring in to help?
Yeah, good question. Not necessarily like I'm not putting myself on a timeline. Again, there's an incredible excitement around this program, and there's not a shortage of people, that would love to come be a part of this. Obviously, I will bring some staff members from North Texas, and just kind of evaluating it all. When it's kind of putting a puzzle together. So you're trying to put fits and personalities that can, ultimately, magnify my strengths and help me on my weaknesses. And when you talk about what type of characteristics, just people that love other people that want to serve these young men that we get to be around every day and impact them in a way, and understand that the best way for all of us to have individual success, even as staffers, is winning. And the more you win, the more opportunities we all get.
You mentioned analytics as well. How big of a role does that play for you? And how much do you base around that?
Yeah, it's definitely a tool. It's not the Bible, per se for me, but it's certainly a tool that we use, and a lot of times it can be a way to reinforce what you think you're seeing on film. I'm still one of those guys. I usually like to watch the film first, garner my own thoughts, and then use the analytics and the data to back up what I'm seeing. And then, maybe you go back and, revisit some things based on the data and the analytics. And certainly a great resource and a great tool, and it's very helpful.
Coach, you mentioned the emphasis on road games, playing on the road in your past stops. How do you feel the AAC has prepared you for a Big 12 road schedule? Yeah,
there's kind of a saying in coaching, the best league in the country is the one you're coaching in. And, I have so much respect for the Big 12, so much respect for the coaches in the Big 12. And we kind of have an internal saying amongst ourselves and our players, like we respect everyone and we fear no one. And every time we, lace them up and step on a floor, the opponent's going to have our full respect, no matter who it is. If you step in between those lines, there's a certain level of respect that you've earned, and it gets magnified. Obviously, you're playing against really good teams, really good players, really good coaches, road environments, and I think there's a togetherness that you have to go into those environments with, and a willingness to stay together. Play through runs, play through adversity, and legitimately play for each other. If you go into those games and you're kind of playing to play good, or you're going into this game and you're, as a player, thinking, hey, I want to go in here and score 20, you usually play pretty poor. And if you just can lose yourself in the competition and lose yourself in the mindset that we're going to play for each other, it gives you an opportunity in those road environments.
How much input do you want to have on building the non-conference schedule? Wren's talked a lot about schedule building and how that's a part of what is looked at, whether it be Ken Palm or analytically, or even the committee and their opinions. How much say-so do you want to have in what tournaments you're in, how that looks like before you get into the Big 12 schedule?
I certainly want it to be a collaborative effort, and I'm involved in it. Wren made mention yesterday, and we ain't going to do this, but historically we've been one of the last teams in the country to finish our non-conference schedule at North Texas as well. But we won't do that here. But I do think there's it's an art form. I don't necessarily know if there's like a direct science to it. You got to be willing to have some patience and try to get the games that you want to get that make the most sense for your university. Obviously, you have an incredible opportunity in Big 12 play for quad one wins, and you get so many of those organically built in. But you want to be smart in your non-league, and you want to challenge yourself in your non-league, and that's one thing that we've really done, historically in the past, even at a place like North Texas. We want to challenge ourselves in the North. We want to prepare ourselves for the rigors of the Big 12. You can get a little bit of a false sense of security if you're not challenging yourself, and you don't get to find out about yourself. And even if that means if you have an early setback or two, as long as it's the right game and the right team, it doesn't hurt you as much as it provides an opportunity to help you.
Ross, moving to a larger school, larger conference, kind of expanded resources, what does that give you as far as ideas or even positions for scouting, portal recruiting, high school recruiting that you can provide that maybe you couldn't before?
Yeah, there's no question about it. When you were evaluating this opportunity, that was a big part of the allure, is the opportunity to take care of players and put players in position to reap the benefits of what they've earned at this level and the resources that you have. Our practice facility situation and locker room situation is as good as anybody's in the country. I was blown away. And the vision to have that thing built, 12 years ago? But to be able to have that vision to build something 12 years ago that still looks like it was built yesterday, and that's something you can really sell. And that's part of the job, and that's part of the adjustment for everybody in the landscape, and it's something you've got to be committed to from a rev share standpoint. Obviously, there's a lot of eyes on the House settlement coming down here in the next week or two that can change some things again, but that's certainly part of the landscape of college basketball now. You have to be able to do those things to be competitive.
Coach, you mentioned Houston a couple of times. For the style you want to play, are they sort of, especially this year, are they sort of the benchmark that everybody's chasing?
I would think it just wouldn't be us that's chasing them. I would think anybody else that wants to be in the Final Four would certainly take a hard look at it. But I have a lot of respect for Coach Sampson, a lot of respect for all the coaches in the Big 12. And there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, obviously. And I don't think you have to be married to one certain ideology, especially in this time period. And it gets back to kind of, ironically, it does shift to like a junior college model where you have your core philosophy foundations that like this is what's important to you and how you want to win, mainly people, and the fact that they love playing basketball and love people and can sacrifice for others. But then I don't think you can be too stringent on every team's going to be a little different. Every team's going to have certain strengths and weaknesses, and we've had elite defensive teams throughout these years, but sometimes we've had teams that were really good at defending the three-point line, and then the next year maybe we weren't great at defending the three-point line, but we were elite at guarding twos, or maybe we turned people over a little bit more. And I think you got to do it the same way offensively. It's all about how can you find a way to put your best players in position to be successful, and you can't just be rigid. My wife is a yoga instructor and Pilates, and she's taught me a lot through the years. And one thing she's taught me is that in the storms, we had a tornado warning last night, but in the storms, it's the flexible trees that survive storms. The stiff, rigid trees, they break under storms. So you got to have some flexibility. You got to be able to evolve, and you can't be so stubborn in a certain way that this is how we're going to do things outside of you are going to play extremely hard. We are going to play together. We're going to play for each other, and there's going to be a connectivity amongst the group.
Coach, Wren, thank you all very much. Coach will be around for a little bit. We appreciate everyone coming up. President Gee, Wren Baker, thanks, and it is a great day to be a Mountaineer, wherever you may be. Thank you, everybody.